Hey everybody, welcome. My name is Christine Grace and I am so glad you're here. This video is all about the big T. So the major shifts and pivots in my life, both business and personal wise, basically where the hell I've been the past like 6, 7, 8, 9 year months. And what that means for me. So I'm going to be really vulnerable and raw and real in this video, just sharing a lot of like personal stuff, and just because I want to basically share my journey with all of you, and I feel like that's really important when we talk about energetic shifts, spiritual stuff, personal stuff, how that all works together, and how that all plays into part with like what's happening with my work, what my offerings are, and all that stuff. And I promise to share a little bit about what's been happening on my end. So yeah, let's talk. So let's just go like right into the meat of it. So let's talk about business shifts here. So most of you know, if you've been around for a little while, that I was basically doing a lot of like spiritual business coaching for spiritual entrepreneurs. So people who had any sort of like spiritually aligned business, whether you're a healer, a therapist, of any kind. I did a lot of spiritual, business focused growth work on getting your business to a sustainable income level. And I really loved doing that. It was very successful for me. I really loved that work. And I'm good at that. Like, I'm a Cap, I'm a manifester, so working with money, working with energetics, working with funnels and creating systems and creating processes for people that like go against the grain and creating something for yourself that works well actually becomes very easy for me. That's something that I actually quite enjoy. What happened was COVID hit. Y'all remember COVID-19? Yeah, it's still here. Okay. Well, in 2020, that was a big, I don't think people understood the impact that it would take emotionally on business owners. And still, how much that takes emotionally on business owners. And because my work is like primarily focused on not only like your marketing and your growth there financially, but like, is your work aligned? Are you in your most truest authentic self in your work? Like, there's a lot of emotional shit that comes up. So I do a lot of personal growth. I do a lot of energetics. I do a lot of clearing. We do a lot of like deep dive stuff, okay? And when COVID hit, like a lot of the clients that I was working with, like it was hit or miss, whether like they could do it, they could not do it, the pivots were hard, like. And it wasn't just like, you know, shifting your business. It's like it was impacting families, it was impacting communities, it was impacting like stuff that we had not seen basically on an unprecedented scale, right? And to say that people took things too, they didn't take it seriously enough is an understatement. And I'm not even talking from a political standpoint, I'm talking from like an emotional standpoint. Like, these are people's livelihoods. These are people's incomes. These are people's businesses. They feed their families. They feed their children. They impact the community. Like, people's businesses feed other people's children. Like, we need to understand like the socioeconomic impact that certain businesses have when it comes to like a community. Like, it was a big issue. And so when COVID hit, that stress and overwhelm just went over the top for not only my clients, but for me, because it was like, I'm holding space for all of these women to come to this place that like, oh my God, like, I don't know if this is gonna work. I don't know if we can do this. Like, I don't know if I can shift like that. Like, I don't know, I might have to step back. I might have to go find another part-time job, and like doing what you have to make sure that you can feed your kids. Like, doing what you have to because this and the other, or like signing up for, you know, the PVP and like all these other things that are happening right back in 2020. It is now 2022. We're 2 years in and it's still like this, okay? Now, with that being said, it was so overwhelming for me. I'm a business owner, like shifting and pivoting and going with all this. Like, I was still at the time doing a lot of physical one-on-one touch. So I was doing a lot of physical healing work through massage, through energy sessions in person. I love doing that. I still love doing that, even when I was doing coaching, because God, that's my heart. Like, that's community work in like the truest sense, right? Like, you're working on someone's body physically and making a huge difference in the height of COVID. Okay, so there was a few weeks where we were shut down, of course. Lots of times where we had exposures and we were shut down, of course. And just doing what we could to serve the stress levels that were heightened in our community at the time. And this is when I was still in Anchorage, obviously, because I'm not in Anchorage anymore. I'm living in LA. Hello. And it was absolutely overwhelming. And it wasn't just me, it was every single client was just like, simplify, 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 simplify. And there was this deep need for myself to step back and to just be like, this is way too much. And energetically, being emotionally and energetically sensitive to like global stuff that's happening, it was a lot. It was like way too much for me. So I decided to actually just take a break and just say, you know what, we're just gonna pause this, which ended up turning it into me like not actually ever taking another client for a very long time. Now on top of that, let's just make a shit fuck stack on top of this. If anybody knows that reference, you get 10 points. But I had a lot of loss in 2020 as well. I had my grandparents die, I had my mother-in-law at the time die. It was horrendous. And we were doing hospice, in-home hospice with her at the time. It was so much. And trying to do that and running a spiritually aligned business and working with clients in the middle of COVID and a pandemic and trying to, it was just way too much. And some of my one-on-one clients, you know who you are, I love you dearly. You were totally understanding. You were there for me in ways that I cannot even begin to express. It was too much. Too much. And I hit the fuck it all meter so many times when we were doing in hospice care for my mother-in-law, when I lost my grandparents, when we lost friends and family that died, not even from COVID, just from cancer, from Alzheimer's, from and COVID, right? It was just all over and over. And the grief's still there. It's still there, okay? It is a long process of dealing with all of that, learning to having to walk away from something that was you're very good at, you love doing, and knowing that you just can't do that anymore. And things being what they are, and it's interesting, hindsight's 2020, and there's that long-running joke because 2020 was shit for everybody, right? Maybe we got that whole phrase wrong. Oh, super funny. I go back and I see, those days where I'd be up till 4 a.m. taking care and sleeping on an air mattress and then getting up and then going to work for 3 hours and coming back. It was just it was a shit show, guys. It was just so, and I chose it. And don't get me wrong, I would choose it again. To be with somebody to the end of their life and to sacrifice in those ways is something that if you have the ability to be that compassionate, I highly recommend doing. From a place of service, it's something that you will it will stay with you for the rest of your life. And I've done it at least twice now, with my Lola back in 2018, my mom's mom, and that again, grief. So it's been a huge, big cycle of grief and death and loss and endings and beginnings. And so when she died in 2020, closed the business coaching down, and I just took a solid reprieve because I just knew there was no way I had any energy for anything else to hold space. And for me, and this is something I talk about a lot with my clients, and I've talked a lot about this in my videos and in my work when I did a lot of business coaching, is integrity, especially with your energetics, especially with your boundaries. It's like if you don't have the ability to hold space, you do not. Period. End of story. Like that is just a lack. Like I see this a lot in the spiritual community. It's just something that you just do not do. It's one thing to have the cycles move through you and understanding where you are, and it's another thing to not even have the ability to be able to hold that space and have that like boundary within yourself to be able to hold space. And I knew I didn't have that. I had that. There was no way. There was no barrier. There was no, there was no ability at all. I was completely inundated. I didn't have the support in those ways that I knew I needed. So yeah, it just wasn't happening. It was not happening. So with all of that personal loss, with all of that and then choosing to close it all down, it was like this huge, I mean, if you can imagine, right, like the biggest cycle of closure, failure, feeling, loss, death, like just everything ending at the end of 2020, beginning of 2021. And then not to mention, my two beautiful fur babies died at the beginning of 2021, and they were like my babies. They were my dog and my bunny, which I had a bunny, which some of you know, like the first 2 weeks of January of last year, which would be probably like a year from just a couple days from now. And so it was like this big, like cherry on the end of a shit cake of like, what in the hell is happening? And my heart couldn't take it. It was like too much, like absolutely too much. And I could, because we're only given exactly what we can. And it was interesting when, I'll share this before I kind of shift gears a little bit, is when my mother-in-law was passing, and she died from cancer. She chose to just die peacefully in her bed over time, basically. We would spend lots of time in her bed, me and her, just like I'd be cuddled up next to her. We'd just chat like face to face, and we'd talk, 4, 5, 6. Like it was just like ridiculous. We just like, you know, like what else are we gonna do? We're just like talking, right? And she'd share with me moments of her life, just like past experiences of regret, of love, of just hilarious moments of just these like little snapshots in time that like when you look back and you see them, they have so much wisdom just packed in these tiny little moments. And I remember kind of laying there, you know, like at this time, like my Lola had already died, my mom's mom, and she was like my best friend. Like, whew, that was one of the hardest moments in my life to date. And I was sitting there and I just felt like this overwhelming sense of like, I don't want my life to keep feeling like I'm scraping against the barrel, if that makes any sense, or I'm fighting against the tide, or I'm feeling deeply unsettled. And there's this constant amount of like personal, energetic emotion that I was kind of ignoring. And she really stirred that up in me. And the death and closure and grief will do this. Anybody who has gone through grief or who has worked with their own grief and loss has really can understand what this feels like. Is like it makes you clarify what is most important and makes those most important things non-negotiable. All of a sudden they become the most important things and nothing else matters. And anything in the way of that is, they're not a mountain anymore. It's just like this tiny little molehill that you just step across. And so I had this like big, overwhelming sense of like, something's got to give. And I could feel that in my spirit, like in my presence, like in my soul. Like it was like, wow. And so after she had passed, and then my, fur baby's past, it was like this like awakening of like, this is the life that I made for myself, and I don't like it. And let me just preface this with something. I'm a manifester. I'm a 4-6 emotional authority manifester. So if that makes sense to anybody else, that should. But I'll explain. Manifestors do what the fuck they want. But most of us have learned to not do that. We've learned to kind of codependent, become like minorly codependent, or to placate, or to just kind of go along with what we think is important to those around us for the sake of like losing ourselves in the process. And any manifestors out there that know what that feels like it's a total journey of like learning to say fuck everything and following that own like blazing trail for yourself, even when it feels completely crazy. Excuse me. Because it does. And I'm sitting there, and it's like February, March, and I'm just like, I don't want this. I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to be married anymore. It was like this whole thing, and that, I won't want to get too deep into that, but that was a long time coming. But it was a really powerful moment, and the biggest part of it all was, can I actually choose that? And every time I sat there and I asked myself, can I actually have that? I just remember my mother-in-law on her bed, remembering the stories that she told me of her regrets and her loves and the things that she missed out on, and the things that she could have done or she did do, or the things that she wished she did, and the stories that she told. And yeah, I was like, of course I can. I was like, why wouldn't I? I was like, she is so young. I was like, this is ridiculous. I was like, why do we make change so scary when it's simply just choices? It's simply just choices. And so I made a choice. And that choice led me here. And so it was one of the hardest choices I ever had to make, because it wasn't without love, and love for him, love for myself. But I knew it's what I needed to do, and I knew that there's a lot of things that I wasn't receiving and I wasn't happy with. And it doesn't mean that I didn't have love for him. And so I chose to basically move forward with a divorce, and so that's what happened. And I think this died. But what's interesting about that all is that like I basically manifested this life once I chose myself, and once I chose this path of like, I'm not going to allow myself to be stuck in a place of suffering because I'm too afraid to choose. And once I realized that, like, it was like this. Like, it was so fast, guys. Like, people started showing up, opportunities started showing up, like, my life started showing up in ways that I had never expected. I started meeting new friends, new people. Like, my new spiritual teacher just showed up like this. Like, my life had just fast forward in, like, the fastest of ways. And then I listened to my body even more and realized that I couldn't do massage anymore, because I was still doing massage at this time, because I took it really, really way back and just did like the most basics of what I knew for me physically was possible in my work. And I realized that I couldn't even do massage anymore because my body hated it. My shoulders were killing me, my wrists were killing me. And so I decided to quit and move to California. And here I am. And it's just so interesting what happens. Like, when I look back at those days of like being so afraid to like make that decision, being so afraid to like move forward with what that was, and then everything that transpired in between of like the people that I met, the life that I lived, the mentors that came through, all the things that have transpired up until now, me living in this great apartment, this beautiful like neighborhood, living in this area that like I never expected, in the sun. Like, I'm born and raised in Alaska, guys. This is not a thing. Like, I can't even comprehend not having snow, and it's January. Like, I don't even, like, that's still like a weird thing for me. Like, I still can't even, I don't even understand. Let alone having more than 4 hours of daylight. So like, okay, you know, it's like a lot of like, what's happening? It all shifted, but it was all me like really getting really clear on those like little pieces that we forget. Like, this is all great, but there's just this one piece, but like, this is all fine, but this one little thread, it's okay. This is good enough. And so like, it's this urging that like we all have within us of like really being able to choose what it is for ourselves that we really want. Being able to ask for what it is that we really want. And can you really just receive that? Yeah, you fucking really can. And we think that change is so scary and so intense and powerful and like crazy. But when I look back, like, it was like simple. Like, I made a choice and then it just all unfolded. Like, it really did. Like, everything just like opened up. And I was shocked. When I look back now, like, it just was like boom, 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 boom. And trusting that like it's all going to work out, which for me as a Capricorn is it's a little much. So, but yeah. So all that being said is that like this whole big cycle of like grief and death and loss and endings and beginnings for myself was like one of the biggest ones I've gone through in my life, this physical life, and it's really brought me back to like what the source is of what's most important to me, and that's really mastering your energy. Like, mastering your clarity, coming back to like, do you know what your own energetic mastery is? And so coming back to like doing energy clearings, doing energy sessions, which I've always done, but like doing these is like, these are the most important things. When we get to those clarity points in ourselves and our personal life, everything else unfolds. Like, literally everything else. And I've done this with my clients even in business. Like, we did a lot of energetic work, always. And so this work is like the most important right now, especially when the global collective is like a lot. And especially when you're going through big cycles of endings, growth, beginnings, and like, it's the most important part. And if you're feeling dysregulated, if you're feeling like clouded and heavy, like, this is the part that you need to focus on. Mastering your energy, mastering your clarity. And it takes time, it takes practice, but when you get there, it's easy. It's really, really easy. So 2 things before I finish this off. I have one amazing offering for you guys. It's free, and this is going to be a weekly free offering that's coming out. This is something that's been on my heart the past several months because I've been doing this for myself just in like my daily practice on a consistent basis. And this is just a violet flame meditation. It's for a community and on a global level. So what this is going to be, it's going to be on Sundays. So the first one is going to be on Sunday, January 16th, which is this next Sunday, at 11 a.m. Pacific. I'm in Pacific time. And what this is it's going to be a guided meditation by me. So it'll be live, it'll be on Zoom. And so, and again, free. So what this is that we're going to get on so that you have community, you have other people. You don't have to have your camera on, but if you want to engage with other people, you can. And so what we do first is we start with ourselves. We clear, transmute any lower, denser energies that are not aligned and not of us. And then we shift to our families. And then we shift to our city, then we shift to our state, our neighborhoods, communities, then we shift to our country, and then we shift to the world. And so as we clear and transmute all these denser vibrational energies around the globe, it shifts that global consciousness state so fast. And so anyways, that's going to be on Sunday, and it's going to be happening every Sunday at 11 a.m. And then the other offering is me doing the one-on-one energy sessions. This is something that I love doing, and this is going to help you if you don't know your master teachers and your guides to start working with them daily, as well as understanding your own energetic mastery, working with that on a daily basis, creating and cultivating a daily spiritual practice. And you can click on a link in the box, and there'll be a link for you to schedule that if you want to do that. So I hope that this has been fun for y'all. I just wanted to share a little more personal side of like what life's like over here. And then I will be sharing more of the meditations here on this page, as well as other just kind of like behind the scenes stuff, and just getting more raw and real about like my own journey, how I work with energetics that come up and different things, and how I apply that to like just like tangible practical shit, because it's one thing to be like in the woo and it's another to just apply it in real life. So lots of love and fire from me, and I'll talk to y'all soon. Bye.